on a Monday morning on the basement floor. Uh, I decided to actually scenic the back hidden tracks on the railroad and up against the mountain scene view. I'm just going to put I have like a tunnel of rocks, a mountain carved out, and then the other side maybe a small hill with some trees because there's going to be a small loop going around the backside. You may see the dog come in the picture. Yeah, I've got an old holiday tablecloth down because I'm going to be making a mess. You can see some of the things I tried, just scratching up chunks of foam, try and make rocks. I was playing around with like a chisel. I didn't really like the way that looked. Then I started playing around with this old craft wire brush, and I really started to like the limestone look. So yeah, there's the dog. So my first couple attempts were just carving out chunks and then cutting striations. Did the same thing here. And, and when I started painting it up, it still looked flat. Like that's gonna look flat. I even tried doing some longer pieces and still not super happy with the look. These may end up, I may have just going to the backside and reusing them. Then I really just scored up the chunk of foam first and ripped out all these pieces and then came back and started putting in the lines and trying to scarve it. And I haven't painted this up. I'm going to see how that looks. So that's where we're going to start. Excuse me. And the idea here for this, let me get my orientation right here. These two end pieces. Now that's top and a top. So I've got them set like this. And the track doesn't curve, it goes straight, but I may offset these a little bit. And I'll patch in where these holes are with some plaster and repaint. I'm going to try and do as much of this work off the layout as possible. And in the end, if the rocks don't work for the layout, they may end up going into dioramas or scatter terrain, and I'll just bite the bullet and buy some plaster molds and do those. But let's start with, so basically, you start with something like this, the foam, we'll carve it up, we'll get into that. And then what I did is I just made a mixture of Mod Podge and some black craft paint, and I added a little bit of brown, blue, and some green into it just to make it kind of a muddy color, but it was mostly black. Painted that over all this structure to try and cover up all the pink foam color to get a uniform black to start. Now, if I was doing this in plaster, I would have left it white and I just would have stained it. It's a little bit easier, but it's a lot more fragile and it's a little more expensive. You got to buy the molds and you get the same old, same old. Here I can vary it. So the next stage of this is to get a gray base on it. And I have a couple of grays, but nothing that make me happy. So this gray has seen better days. It's called Rainy Day. We're just gonna, it's very thick and chunky. We can get rid of some of that. Yeah, that's gross. Where's my black? But black, I've got enough black. Come on. Craft paints. It's super thick. And then I remembered I actually have various off-whites. So I got this like vanilla. I also have some pure white, but we'll start with the vanilla. Oh. So there you go. It's been sitting for a while. The acrylic medium separated from the pigment. And I'm going to use just a cheap brush, a little bit of water, and tons of paper towels. So I'll mix this up. And I want to get kind of a darker than medium gray, but this is probably a little too black. You can see there's a bit of a color contrast, but not enough for my liking. So you can see the exact science going on here. There we go. See that gray color there? It's a nice medium gray. And for this, it's going to be more of an overbrush. I'm not going to try and get it all off. Start with this smaller piece here. You see it on camera really well. Let's bring it up. And I'm going to just, like I said, overbrush. So what I'm going to try and do is preserve some of those lines and just bring it all down. Already, look at the contrast. And it isn't even dry. Like I said, this is more from, and here you can really see the contrast. This is really a kind of old school, like Warhammer making rocks. This top bit, it kind of slants back where it pays. This may get covered in dirt. Probably will get covered in dirt and flocking and a few little trees here and there. It's mostly this face, this cliff face, if you will. Like it's been carved out for the railroad. I gotta get where I was holding my thumb. Yeah, I kind of like that. That's a nice first base coat. So let's, while we got the paint in the palette, this other large chunk here. Yeah, see, that's what happens when you forget to wipe your brush off. You get that big blob, but that's okay. Rocks aren't uniform. I'm going to use various shades of gray, and then I'm going to come back once it's dry and start adding. I'm going to play around with those that are too gray and start adding some shades of brown into them, and maybe some blues. But this really, if it works out well, we'll do some quick carving too, show you how to carve. It might work for you. But I wanted to get this dry brush on here. And on this one, we got to get this other side. I think I forgot the other side on the other one. Again, on where the striations are, I'm trying to keep it to an up and down motion. So I pick up just the highlights. They're very fine, but it'll work for 1/60th scale. It's like sedimentary rock. All right, let me see. Yep, completely forgot. And it goes on pretty bright, but it'll dry darker. Most things do. So let's set that aside. I'll let that sit for a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of water. Keep the bristles from drying out and crust it. So while that goes, let's take a small, I'll take the back side of this one because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to use that. And what I started doing, I started this process with an X-Acto knife. And we'll keep the same orientation. The bottom's flat, the top on this one's kind of flat. And all I really did was just come in here, put some score lines, various depths, And when the blade is going, there's a grain to this stuff. Don't let anyone fool you. And I'll show you in a second, right? So this is where I start. And watch when I come down here. See how it tears? That's the grain structure in the foam. And I'm putting these at an angle. It's super necessary, but I'm trying to vary the depth and not make it a super like grid pattern. Like I might just have one come in at an odd angle like that. And then I just use the flat of the blade. Come in, start picking some chunks out. And I'll be honest, this is where I am not confident in this because it always ends up looking like a mess before it gets any better. This has been one of my favorite tools, just to straight up. I'm just trying to come down at the angle and try to lift out some flats along a plane. And what I need to do is get the paint out of the way because this gets everywhere, this foam. And you can start to see that roughness coming up. Let's pick another plane. We'll go this way with this one. And really, you can just come in with your fingers and start pulling it. Keep different depths and chunks. And you just keep playing with it till you're happy with your final result. Let's get some going. Opposite angle, just to make some variety. And then when I get down to just a few pieces, I like to come in with your fingers or a flat screwdriver. Just get some, I'm trying to get away from this look, these flats. That is the plan. Another tool that works fairly well, it's a drywall saw because it's got these coarse teeth and you can really start hogging out some chunks and making some grooves like this. But honestly, my favorite tool for making some deep grooves is that wire brush, but it doesn't take away the flatness. So you got to get all the flatness out. That's what I've found. So even like that deeper slash. So I'm going to plate it up as like a fault line. Try and keep that. And I kind of like this one here. Trying not to keep it too linear. There's some more slashes in here. All right, so that's like looking, I know it's all in pink, looking pretty good. Here's where the magic comes in. So we've got this fault line. So let's say from the fault line over, the grain of the rock is going to run this way. And so I like just pulling it. And I'm sure you can't see much on camera, but every surface in there is getting, now it's getting weathered down. It's getting those nice grains. So now, see this bit here? I'm going to make that, going to run counter. And this is where I start putting heavy pressure on there. Like the water has run down and it's really wearing away the rock. I'm going to scoop it off at the end. And yeah, it makes a huge mess. Have a good vacuum cleaner or lay down some paper that you can throw out later. And now, so I've got the grain kind of running this way, and that's continuing here. So for this little piece here, I'm going to try and make this straight right across. I'm not a geologist. Don't ask me what makes the rock grain run different directions. I know it's laying down sediments, but why did it choose to lay that way versus this way, have a clue. Now, one thing we didn't put in here that I like to do, where's my knife? Here it is. I like to put in undercuts. So like we've got this drain here, so I'm gonna come in here. And this is gonna create a flat, but we can texture that. That's the beauty of the foam. Especially using these 2-inch blocks of foam, I got plenty of space to create depth. Right up to that fault line. And get in there with that wire brush. I think this would also work for sedimentary rock out west. Might even be better. But I'm trying to go for like a limestoney look. So the colors are going to have to play up. And that's where we start. And that's going to get this color put onto it. So I'll get rid of some of this foam. Let's come back to this right here. We already have that darkish gray color. What I'm going to do is add a lot of black. Pouring some glue. That's going to end up being my whitener. One of the things I like to deviate, especially when I'm doing large stuff, I'm doing small stuff. I just want it thin enough that it'll run into all the crevices. But I like to add a little bit of this flow medium. Just breaks down the surface tension. And I think it does a better job than dishwashing soap that you see a lot of people use, because that's really a surfactant. It's not really, it can cause problems in my opinion. This Flow Aid is designed to work with acrylics. It's an acrylic Flow Aid. And then in that same brush, try to start in the deepest spots and work the bristles in. Now I will say, once you add the Mod Podge, it's got an acrylic binder in it, and it's more than just PVC. It's a PVC and acrylic, I think. And yeah, it's water-based, but man, you got to give it a good 24 hours to dry. Now, you know what I didn't do? I didn't mix in my greens and my blues, so it's got basically a gray color going here. Let's throw a little green in there. That'll make it a little bit more muddy. Just a touch. Now you can even see the color contrast. And I know what you're saying. Oh my gosh, look, you just covered up all that fine detail. Right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take and now my hands are going to be completely saturated in paint. This is not a clean craft day. You're going to get all over yourself. And now I can use the dried or the paint pulled off the brush, pull off any excess pulling, hairs from the brush, these fibers. These are cheap brushes. So yeah, if I have to throw it at the end of the day, no big deal. And we'll see how that comes out. I give all the pink foam a little paint. One, you never know if it's going to show. Two, with the PVA or Mod Podge in there, it will stiffen it up. That's a layer of protection if you wanted to come back and spray paint this. Like if you wanted to go with browns, I'm going to set that over there. And now, even though I haven't cleaned up my workspace really well, these are trial pieces. If they happen to work out, that's awesome. I'm going to come back with more of that vanilla color. Try to create a really I'm liking that gray. I think it needs to be a one tone darker. Just a little bit of black will tone that up. This black. That's a new bottle, so it's not behaving. And it's probably still a little, you can see the original colors here. It's still, I like to go in smaller steps. Actually, let's see about adding a little bit of burnt umber, just a brown color. And this is a thicker paste, so I'm putting it on the side here. Start warming up that gray. There we go. Like I said, this is not an exact science. This is a lot of back and forth. See what colors I get, see what I like, see what I don't like. Oh, that's looking pretty good. And at this point, you're putting less and less paint on, so you don't need a big pile of it. This should make a dramatic change. So this one, I'm actually going to do more of a traditional dry brush approach. You can see I got almost all the paint off. Where's our first one? Right over here. So that dry overbrush is dry. Oh, my computer just crapped out on me. On you. There you go. And again, we're gonna work this one. There's my thumb hold. We're gonna work this one down. Trying to hit the highlights. I just want to kind of get a black and white tonal. Look, my final dry brushes may not be white. I may end up with a khaki. There, you can really see it. And I don't want to cover up all that mid-tone that I put in there either. But there are some spots that just are crying out for a little more highlight. That's it. That's looking very rockish to me. And I think now, as I start going to the lighter colors, I'm going to have more of that brown tone in there. Trying to get rid of that piece of pink foam. So like right here, you can see, here's the mid-tone. Just enough. I have a little bit in there. Nice thing about dry brushing is you're putting so little paint on. It takes no time at all to dry, especially, well, today it's kind of wet out, but it's still warm. It's in the 70s here. It'll dry out pretty quick. Definitely want to hit those edges. And I think I forgot my thumb hold, which is underneath, but I did it anyhow. Boom. Now, let's bring in more of this brown. And somewhere, there we go. I've got a lighter brown. It's like actually called khaki. This is more like your traditional American khaki, if you will. It's that yellowy brown color. Typically khaki is a greenish color, the original khakis, but 1980s office apparel, the brown, light brown pants, we started calling those khaki. going on here? All right, and a moment of truth. Let's see if this brown's going to screw it all up. Man, I don't know if it's coming up on camera, but I really like that brown top tone. It's really bringing some warmth. I know it looks just like ugly, muddy gray, but let me hit this, and then I'll bring it closer to the camera as you can see. All right, so here's my thumb over the, it's just bringing just a little bit of warmth. I may, even on where these striations are, I may want to bring in even more brown, khaki color. It's almost a dusty. I think once I get this tone established, then I am going to have to let it dry and come back. But we can play around with some of these. All right, let's not forget this big boy here. Let me just do the middle and see if you can see the difference on camera. I can bring it up into here. It's subtle, but you can see the shade change. It's almost like you're changing the mood of the rocks from just cold black and white. And you're starting to add a little bit of warmth, almost like a sepia tone. Paint's running low. Try to pull some more brown in there. I'm afraid to add a bunch of khaki to it. I won't get the tone variation that I want. That brown. Which is not a bad thing, right? I mean, rocks are not all uniform in color, but this big piece, which may get broken up into smaller pieces. All right, I'm going to have to give it that college try. There's that little bit there. Let's see if this original gray. I've got this much lighter gray. Almost white. And just a drop. And a little bit of water. Not too much. And it's close. I think it might need a little bit of a darker brown. That doesn't look like much, but that burnt umber is strongly pigmented. Kind of brings in some reddish tones, which I'm really digging. And I've got some regular umber someplace. There we go. What I'm trying to build up here is a palette, almost like if you've done any miniature painting, you've seen the slap chop base prep for colors. Well, my colors are still going to be rocky colors. So I'm just trying to bring a little bit of value or hue that'll set the undertone a little bit. I'm really liking this with a little more burnt umber in it. that reddish brown tone. I'm kind of glad I did this live stream and started playing because I was ready to give up on these foam rocks. This might do the trick. All right. It's kind of hard to imagine what that's going to look like once I get flocking and stuff on it. But for now, I got to let that set and dry. Let's grab one of these pieces. Shouldn't have put that brush in the water. And see if I can't help that with a little bit of brown, messy gray color. Even though it's got a lot of flat, this was yeah, that's too brown. That's too brown. It's those flats. It doesn't really help. Yeah. I think these are a lost cause. I'll probably end up carving the backside. If there's kind of the thought patterns, right? Start with pink foam, black vomit, get it to a black and gray contrast, and then pick out your colors. I like the grays. You could also go with, if you threw some blue in there, let's see what that looks like. That's very blue. Bring in some gray or some brown. A little bit of black. Now we lighten it up. And I said, this is the fun. Antique parchment is very close to that first color there. To me, this is the fun part. Look at that gray. It's got so many values in it and hues. As I unfold myself, I can't help but play. I'm telling you that this feels, it needs a little more bluey black to it, and they may end up making that into a wash. Where'd that blue go? The more layering of colors and hues, just to start bringing it up. I got more of a bluish tone. A lot of the rocks that I remember seeing in and around Philadelphia and eastern Pennsylvania had a bluish color to them. It almost is like a blue black, and you're almost like, did they paint those rocks? No. I think they have a lot of whatever makes slate that blacky blue. There's a lot of that in the Pennsylvania and the east of Harrisburg area. I know even the coal has kind of a bluish color, the anthrite blue, of which I'm heading up to the Reading area next month. Who knows, maybe one of these days I'll step away from the Pennsylvania and make a side platform or interchange. I don't think the Pennsy and the Reading and those other railroads really enjoyed each other. I just lost all my blue. Let's see, how long have we been going at this? I can't see the Can't see the camera without getting up. Now I'm just playing. Now I'm just playing. And you think, man, 100% blue. Yeah, it's there. And I'm being selective. I think I'm going to let this dry, and then everything will get a super duper highlight. I'm going to go with this. Let's start a fresh palette. Right, so I've got this antique acrylic and that khaki. See how much of this gray color I can get out of here. I don't know if it's going to show up really well. Let's take this one. So this is just black and white value, right? So now we're going to mix this tan color, if you will. I'm going to go back to, I ran out of paper towels, taking most of the paint off. And this is completely dry. Look at that. Instant warmth. Let's even take this piece, that little bit of khaki. Just hitting the high spots. I'll brush that at an angle. That's too much. Just going for subtle. That's it. I get this on the railroad, take a camera shot and go, ugh, that looks too cartoonish. That's okay. I got some stuff I can use it on. I'm working on a GW themed old school diorama. And this stuff could work really well on it. So that's what that may get salvaged into. There we go. I think I got my two first big rock pieces. I'm going to add some greens and stuff to them later, but there's my base coating done. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this Monday. And I gotta unfold it. I will see you guys the next time. Have a great day.